I hereby extend an invitation to Dr. Amani Eissa, co-founder and head of business development at Egypt University of Informatics EUI, who is going to be moderating this panel discussion. Joining Dr. Amani Eissa are esteemed experts including Professor Haitham Hamza, the acting chairman of the Software Engineering Competence Center SEEC at ITIDA, and Mr. Mohamed Beltagy, CEO at Optomatica, and Mrs. Mennen Kalyoubi, Vice Mennen, okay, a very unique name. Mennen Kalyoubi, the President for Business Development and Strategy at Siemens Egypt, and Mr. Mohamed Assaal, the entrepreneur at Assaal Education.
Welcome everyone to our panel discussion. Our panel today is titled Harnessing Data Science and AI for Egypt's National Priorities, Opportunities for Innovation and Entrepreneurial Growth. Today we are privileged to host a group of distinguished experts who bring wealth of knowledge and experience from the worlds of government, academia, and industry. Our discussion will explore how integration of artificial intelligence and data science can drive strategic development and innovation across various sectors in Egypt. We'll dive into governmental strategies, corporate innovation, challenges in AI integration, and the immense potential within educational and entrepreneurial endeavors in data science. Allow me first to introduce my esteemed panelists, Professor Haitham Hamza, acting chairman of SEEC ITIDA, and also, he doesn't want me to mention, but I will, Vice Dean of the Faculty of Computing and Information Sciences, who will share insights on both academia and government strategies and initiatives in AI. Welcome, Professor Haitham. Professor Mohamed Beltagy, CEO of Optomatica and RaceMat, who will discuss the technical and operational challenges and solutions in AI integration. Welcome, Professor Mohamed. Ms. Mennen Kalyoubi, VP of Business Development and Strategy at Siemens Egypt, who will highlight how corporate innovation can be strategically enhanced with AI. Last but not least, Mr. Mohamed Assaal, an entrepreneur and educator, who will speak on experiences in fostering self-development and professional education and learning, as well as nurturing growth within startups, ecosystems, and data visualizations and infrastructures. I will invite each panelist to further elaborate on their backgrounds and current projects within the corpus of answering the questions. And they will answer my questions within the backgrounds and the themes of their expertise. So let's begin our questions. My first question to Dr. Haitham and Dr. and Ms. Mennen. How can AI, in your point of view, and data science advance Egypt's priorities in sectors such as healthcare, education, and industrial sector as well? Are there successful case studies or envisioned projects that you can share with us within the scope of your expertise?
Okay. Thank you very much for having us here in this very important and I think very distinguished panel with my colleagues here. So I know the panel time is very short, so we need to just give a quick ideas and overview about what we do and our insights. So let me start with the priority areas that you mentioned and how maybe I would say the government sees this as opportunity for implementing AI and growing the economy and solving a lot of important problems in Egypt. So as His Excellency Dr. Amr Talat, this morning he mentioned that we had already a strategy in 2020, actually started 3 years ago, and this was version 1 of the strategy. But as you know, the base of changes in AI domain, in terms of the technology, the use cases, the needs, has really put a lot of a stretch on the previous strategy. I mean, at that time, there was a lot of use cases, envisioned. And these are the typical use cases. We talk about healthcare, talk about agriculture, we talk about maybe education, and all the typical case studies that we have. But when it comes to reality, it's not very easy to implement really an AI at a national level that has a real impact on these kind of areas. For some reasons. I mean, there are some practical reasons that we need to tackle in order to really make sure that what we look at as a priority can be done. So to start with, I mean, all the areas that we mentioned, they are of great priority to all nations, not only in Egypt. But the problem comes from the availability of data, infrastructure, and the typical ingredients that we need in order to really implement AI in practice. So when it comes to data, some of these areas, they lack a lot of data, and if they have data, they are not really structured data. And if they are structured, and even if they are not structured, but they are not really collected in repositories that you can really work with in a way that will make value. Even if you have that, you can face a challenge related to computing, okay? And the infrastructure that we all know, it requires a lot of computing power, it requires a lot of advanced technologies, and so on. So with all that, now the priority in the new strategy that are being developed now at MCIT, we look at all the dimensions. We look at the 3 dimensions. First, of course, the importance to the nation, economical-wise and development-wise. Also, the capability and the skills that we have, and also the infrastructure that we need. And with these 3, I mean, I can say that the top 3 priorities that we are discussing so far, this is not the final strategy, of course, it's not announced, but these are the 3 top strategies that we have. One is related to healthcare, and also this is a little bit surprising, but maybe, of course, education as well. But the third one is related to the law enforcement and the application of AI in the law system. And this is very important. Yeah, and this is very important because actually most of the data that we have are in Arabic. So this needs just not a traditional AI application that we can bring off the shelf. It needs a lot of development that maybe we can do in Egypt, and we cannot really just borrow it from other places. There is a real impact on the community for this kind of application. So this is kind of priorities that we are working on. So education, healthcare, and the
law enforcement.
Yeah, the law enforcement. These are the 3 main areas that we can really say that we are looking forward to really implement them in reality. Some case studies, of course, exist. Maybe my colleagues are better positioned to talk about the case studies, but I will stop here not to take too much time, and maybe we can elaborate more as we go. Thank you.
Okay, Mennen, from your perspective from corporate initiatives, I know that Siemens has some interesting case studies. Can you talk about one success story or one case study that you really think is very relevant to the Egyptian national priorities?
Sure. I just want to start by saying that we're very lucky to live at this age of AI, even in Egypt or anywhere in the world. But I think there's a lot of acceleration that we can see coming because of AI. So even if we have a lot of unstructured data, we can have AI help us structure it and identify it, parse it, etc. So I think AI will help us bridge a gap of like years that, let's say, looking from an industrial perspective, for countries to bridge to, let's say, to move to Industry 3.0, that took a lot of efforts in the 50s and 60s and 70s in Europe. And now in Egypt, for example, we have cases of, and anywhere in the world as well, but to give a specific example where AI can bridge the gap and automate something or help us skip a step or be more efficient in moving to Industry 4.0. For example, if I have a production line, and I've seen it, a production line, and I want to automate it. I want to automate the visual inspection, for example. So I want to see the quality of, let's say, my glass production line. Instead of having someone like before who would just look, and I've seen it in Egypt before, someone actually looking at each glass and looking if it's with his manual visual inspection and with his experience, which glass is okay, which one is not, and then they just actually remove it. This can be automated without AI, definitely by programming. We have a controller and like something that just pushes it to another line. Now with AI, I can easily, and most of you could be aware of this already, I can have a software installed with a camera, and then this camera would actually, using a machine learning model, automatically recognize which glass or which product is according to my specification, which one is not, in a very early stage, instead of wasting material. So this is a very concrete example of how AI, using a camera and software, can help us, let's say, more than automate, but actually make sure that I'm quality proof. I have a very solid process using AI that before was not an option, actually can be an option. So I think also we have other examples that I've seen as well in Egypt, not in the industrial sector, but in other sectors like the service sectors, where we have, let's say, when you're doing a purchase order, as a company, you have a lot of purchase orders, and let's say you're not digitized in the beginning. You have maybe, like, if you're a startup or a company, an SME, and you have a lot of paper-based purchase ordering. You can also, using different technologies, you can develop, let's say, models that can actually parse through this document and recognize what's in it, extract it, and digitize it. So we have a very easy way to have structured data and actually kind of do analytics on this. What do I buy more from? How can I leverage all this data to get more better deals, find better suppliers, etc. So I think from whether it's service or industrial or any sector, I think the gap that countries used to have before AI to move to Industry 3.0, I think the gap will be much smaller. We won't wait 50 years to become, to bridge the gap between us and, let's say, countries in Europe or in the US or Japan or anywhere. I think AI, especially that AI is also based on labor skills like people, right? It's not a machine. Like, of course, at the end you need software and a server, etc. But I think it's more of people, everyone, like collective intelligence here in the room. Imagine if all our collective intelligence here, it's kind of adding value to the models and building values, and to actually have, let's say, to depend more on the machine learning models and machines in general for the less intelligent things, and we would focus on more things. So if we have machine learning do things that are very redundant, and we focus on being even more creative, that can even give us, as humanity in general as well, not just as Egypt, to be very creative and help even more advanced the challenges we face.
Indeed, thank you very much. My next question would be very relevant to companies, whether it's established AI or tech companies or startups. My question to Professor Beltagy, given the global pace of digital transformation, what are the primary challenges that you see that Egypt faces in AI adoption, and how might these be addressed or mitigated?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. There's so much to say in that topic. I'll try to be quite brief. So the first thing, we have to define where do we want to be in terms of this new revolution. Do we want to be leaders or followers, somewhere in the middle? And where can we, what do we have in terms of areas of strength we can build upon, and shortcomings that we need to address? So Egypt, I moved from the United States about over 20 years ago and started my business here along with my teaching work. And I was always impressed by the quality and the brilliance of Egyptian students. I was very privileged for many years to teach at Cairo University, where I seeded my company from classroom hires. And we were doing work with companies and institutions in Sweden who were struggling with certain areas of innovation, in which the team that we have at Optomatica, Egyptians, graduates from Cairo University, did a brilliant job. And we had, so I'm just taking that data point, and I'm having reasons to actually be very optimistic about the current focus on education and AI, that we are building a fantastic talent pool. I was very delighted today, just standing in my company's booth and interacting with students, just to see the energy, the brilliance. So I think we have a lot going for us that can allow us to be really at the forefront. However, there are many hurdles as well. As of 1.5 years ago, there has been an exodus of talent from Egypt going to the Gulf, not just individuals, but also companies. And we have to kind of like really ask ourselves a very hard question: why is that happening? And how can we mitigate against that? We have to think about the enabling environment for companies to want to stay in Egypt. But even beyond that, we have to be an attractive hub to attract international companies to come and work in Egypt, you know, and open up shop. It's a shame that now I'm seeing a lot of AI companies around the Gulf seeded by Egyptian talent, and we are kind of like at the tail end of the value chain. So I'm very much for us thinking seriously about where do we want to stand in terms of value creation. So creating capable students and talent is one thing, and I think we're, you know, we have ways to go there for sure, but we're getting better and better at it. But how can we retain them, and how can we indigenize and attract companies and talent and make them stay in Egypt? So that would be a point of huge
This may
priority.
has to do with the enabling environment, with new legislations, maybe in the presence of a governmental presence here, that we can suggest some enabling or hosting more friendly environment for investments in this area, or relaxed legislations to encourage these companies to stay and nurture, and maybe other companies come to this area instead of opening in the Gulf and the likes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing I would just add is that we also have to consider to kind of like nurture innovation in Egypt, in our own local market. There has to be an outreach to the population to give them, to educate them more about AI and what how can it transform their lives and what use cases can apply for. My colleague Mennen, she pointed out, for example, the case of computer vision and what it can do. But there's so many cases, and businesses in Egypt are not aware of that. So if we were to reach out through popular means, through colloquiums and forums, to get businesses to understand what can be done and what the efficiencies and gains that can be realized, to get them to start investing early in that. They don't have to be specialized companies. They could be working in agriculture, industry, tourism. If they can just start focusing their attention there, I think we can see a great deal of innovation going on that can benefit us and also beyond.
Great, thank you very much. Pulling the thread from here and speaking about education and investment and entrepreneurship, I would like to hear from Mohamed Al-Assaal about his view on the hurdles and how to overcome them.
First of all, I'm very glad to be here with my esteemed colleagues, this great panel. Speaking from, let's start with the economic perspective, or how AI will shape a lot of things, especially economy. The way I see it is the AI is the new electricity of the 1900s. The last century, with the introduction of electricity,